Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now this very stone-like looking piece of wood is actually a piece of brown oak burl. I've turned brown oak before. I've never turned a burl of brown oak before, but I do remember it being incredibly hard. So this kind of grey stone-like surface may be a very good indication of the tough time we've got ahead of us. Now it's a fairly nice looking piece of wood. We do have some fissures and cracks in the wood. There's a couple on this side as well heading towards the center, so we are going to have to be very, very careful of those as we're turning. Now I wasn't sure exactly what to do with this. Initial thoughts was to try and turn it as a complete platter or something like that, keeping its natural shape, but we've got this very, very straight edge across here which could make it look very, very odd. So I'm thinking of cutting it into some sort of round blank and turning it that way. I also considered turning it as a live edge, but if I turn it this way up with this as the top of the piece, we may have the opportunity to keep some of this wonderful, interesting surface on the outside of the piece, but it's going to be underneath, but you'll still be able to see it when you lift it up and have a look. So I think that is the best way to approach it. So initially, I'm going to get my compass out, see what kind of circle we can get in here, cut it out in the bandsaw. I think we'll mount this with a worm screw, and then we can get started. Now the easiest way to mark this would be to do it on this side, but with it not being flat, it's going to make it very, very awkward and slightly dangerous to cut it on a bandsaw. So I'm going to turn it this way up and mark the circle on this side. I think that'll do it. I'm just going to quickly draw over this line just so I can see it nice and easily when I'm cutting it out of the bandsaw. That should do it. Right, let's go and cut this out. Okay, there we go. There's our blank all nicely cut out. Looking at it straight down, it looks like a planet. I love that. Right, let's get marked up for a worm screw. Now I've left my calipers at the same size as before, so it should be hopefully fairly easy for me to find the center on this side. Now we've found the center, we can just go in with an 8mm bit. And get it on the lathe. Okay, nice and safely on the lathe. We're using tailstock for security at the start, just in case there's any problems. The worm screw does have enough strength to hold this by itself, but like anything else, it's always better to have an extra level of safety if you can. Now, it is a little bit out of balance, as you can see, but that's purely because we've got a very, very uneven surface. So the first order of business is to flatten this off a little bit on the top and on the sides so we can start turning at a slightly higher speed. Initially we're going to be turning at 640 RPM, starting off with a freshly ground 1/2 inch ball gouge. Okay, we've made a start. The surface is like rock, absolute rock. I could hear pieces pinging off as it's just completely brittle. Now, I'm not quite sure how long this piece has been sat since it was first cut down, but I think it's quite a number of years. So we will carry on. I'll start working on from this edge. We've got most of the high points gone now, so hopefully I can pick up the speed a bit as well, which is going to help. Okay, progress is getting easier. We're up to 900 RPM now, so that's a nice healthy speed to be turning at, and I'm sure in a couple of seconds we'll be over the 1,000 mark without too much bother. Right, we've still got this crack which I pointed out at the start going across, and that leads into there. I can't see any sign of it on the top or anywhere like that, so we may go past these. That one obviously gets in quite tight, but again, oh, it does. It goes through the other side as well, so that one we're going to have to be careful of. Anything else? I'm not sure. Some beautiful looking grain coming through. I'm not sure if the cameras will pick it up, but as soon as we put a bit of finish on this, I think it's going to be quite amazing. Okay, I think I'm going to take this curve up a little bit higher and then round it off at the top. I'm not quite sure exactly what kind of edge I want on this yet, so we'll just take this a little bit higher, get this perfectly round, and then see where we stand. Okay, that's pretty much going all the way around. We've got a small flat spot there, but I'm sure we can get that a little bit later on. Now, we've got to start working in from this edge and start looking at how we're going to hold this piece when we turn it around. If we go for a tenon, we've got to produce enough wood here to be able to grab on from the outside, which in terms of safety, that's probably the safest way with this piece, especially bearing in mind this crack we've got going through here. But it does mean that we're going to lose a lot of this depth and possibly some of these areas as well. There won't be very much of that left once we're done. But again, to keep us safe, I'll happily do it. Now, if it looks okay, then we'll go in with a recess instead, which may mean that we can keep a little bit more of this. So anyway, I've just sharpened up again. We shall continue going and see what happens. The shavings from this, by the way, are like little pebbles. It's hard as rock. When I'm moving my banjo around, I can feel it grinding underneath. So I'm going to need a thorough overhaul and clean of this when we're done. Okay, the turning speed's up now to about 1100 RPM. I still have that small flat spot there, which I thought I'd got, but I haven't. The surface is looking smoother, purely because of the speed we're cutting it now. It doesn't feel like that on the gouge. The gouge still feels like it's going downhill on a bumpy road, but I don't think that is going to change. This is a very, very difficult surface to cut and to cut cleanly. Now I'm starting to take this material towards the center to see what we can do with this in terms of creating a tenon or a recess. That is enough wood for a tenon, but you'd need a tenon and a foot unless we use the tenon as the foot, in which case we'd need it to the exact dimensions of our maybe 100mm jaws. So I think, I don't know, I've got plenty of depth maybe to do another pass and produce double this depth. That might give us a few more options, so I think I'll just do that and see how it looks. But first of all, I think I'm going to quickly sharpen up again because those last few cuts were brutal. Okay, right, I took a slightly different tack there and just had a look to see if I could create a smaller tenon within our foot. It's the kind of thing that Phil Anderson does quite a lot, and he does it with a fair amount of success. So I'll just check this for size. Yeah, if I put a dovetail in there, that'll work nicely as a tenon. It means that at the end we've got to turn it round and turn it off, which is always fun, but I can handle that, I think. Right, I'll just quickly do that, and then we can play around with the last areas of shaping on this outer edge. Okay, that's a nice clean edge, nice little dovetail on there. I know we don't have wood all the way around, but that doesn't matter as long as it's got a good solid lump of wood to grab onto, and with that dovetail the jaws will lock onto it as well. Right, excellent. This edge isn't looking too bad, so that needs, I think, a little bit more refinement, and then we need to turn nicely up this edge and get rid of our last remaining flat spot there. Or should we leave it? No, we better leave it. Okay, excellent. That's all nice and round now. I think I'm just going to quickly go over this surface with a scraper just to see if I can get rid of a couple of the tool marks. I don't usually use scrapers on the outside of a piece, but with this being a burl, I think it should work just fine. And then we're just about ready for sanding. Okay, much better. Right, I'm going to set up for sanding. I'll let you watch a bit of it, and I'll bring you back when we're done. Sorry about that, I had to pause them because it's a bit noisy. It gives me great pleasure to say that the video this week is being sponsored by Squarespace. If you've ever thought about setting up a website to share your own projects, sell your work, or even just document your journey, then let me tell you, Squarespace is the place to start. I've been using Squarespace myself for over a year now to host my website, and I honestly couldn't be happier. It's helped me bring all the bits of my craft together in one place. Videos, galleries, customer contact, and even a small online shop. And getting started with Squarespace couldn't be simpler. They have a myriad of beautiful templates and easy drag and drop tools, and even an AI assistant to help you build your site in minutes. You really don't need to be a web designer to create your own online home. And with tools like built-in search engine optimization and email campaigns, you can actually grow your audience and keep in touch with customers or supporters with very little effort. So if you're thinking about starting your own site, maybe show off your turning, or start selling your work, or just want to build a little corner of the internet for yourself, then Squarespace makes it so simple. Go to www.squarespace.com/Mike Holton, or click the link in the description to start your free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code Mike Holton to get 10% off your website or domain. All the details are in the description. Right, I'll let him get back on with it. Okay, sanding went very well, and I can't wait to put a finish on because I've got a feeling this is going to be quite special. This is just a bit of isopropyl alcohol just to help get the dust off the grain, or out of the grain rather. Oh my goodness. For a dry old piece of gnarly wood, it's going to clean up quite nicely, I think. We'll let this dry, and we'll come back on with a shellac sealer, I think. Okay, that's all nice and dry. So I'm going to go on with a very thin sealer. This is only a 5% saturation. If you make up your own shellac, then it's an equivalent to a ½ pound cut. And the right reason why I'm doing this is because over the top of this I want to put a Howard feeding wax. And I just want this protective layer on first, just to help even up any inconsistencies with the wood. If you want to start making your own shellac, then there's a video on my channel, I'll put a link to it at the end, where you can see how it's made and make it yourself. It really is incredibly easy. Right. Now, because we've got all the cracks and dips and delves in this piece, I don't want to go on with an abrasive paste because that's just going to fill all the holes and be a nightmare to remove. So what I'm going to do is, when this dries, I'm just going to give it a very, very light wire wooling, and then we can go on with a Howard feeding wax. But that is looking amazing. Okay, that's a chance to dry, so I'm just got about 1000 grit Scotch pad, which I'm just going to lightly run over the surface. It'll just smooth it up a little bit, knock back any raised areas, and get ready for the Howard feeding wax. Okay, this is Howard feeding wax. It's a blend of beadwax, carnauba wax and orange oil. So it's going to do lots of good for the wood and smell amazing. The idea is we get a nice healthy dose on a cloth and wipe it onto the surface. And we're going to allow it to sit there on the surface for a good 20 minutes. When that's done, we can buff it in and apply a second coat if we need to. It's not going to give us a high shine, but it will certainly give us a wonderful luster. I'm going to have to put a reasonable amount on the cloth here to get into all these little holes. If you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe and all the usual things. It doesn't cost a penny, and it makes a huge difference to us. If you hit the notification button as well, then you'll keep informed of new videos coming out, and any news or anything like that I'll put in the community section. Right, I'll leave this for 20 minutes, come back, and if it's all good, we'll turn it around and start the other side. Okay, we've turned around, we're nice and safely locked off with tailstock support as usual. Initially turning at 1100 RPM, carrying on with a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. Okay, nice start. There's that crack that we had on the other side. As you can see, it's significant. So I think we're going to have to keep a very, very close eye on that. I'm not going to go wafer thin on this piece because there's no point. It's a robust, rustic piece, and if we went too thin, we'd just stand a chance of losing everything. And it's too nice for that. So that's about a 3/4 of an inch thick at the moment, so we're going to take it down to about 3/8 of an inch or 1/2 an inch at the least, and that way we can try and guarantee that this thing is going to hold together. Now, one thing I do want to do in terms of design for the interior is I need to go straight in on this edge here just to replicate what we've got on the outside. Now, it is easiest to do that with a bowl gouge, but I can't do that with the tailstock there. So what I'm going to do is just try to get my little square tipped carbide to at least take me in the start of that edge to get the initial straight down bit, and then after that I'll take over with a 45-degree bowl gouge to create the last bit of the curve. Okay, that's nice, I like that. We do have to remove that little lip there, but I'll do that once the tailstock is gone. Quick check on thicknesses. I think we can afford to just take that a little bit deeper in there. I'll quickly sharpen up again and then we'll do that, but I think it's about time the tailstock came away. Okay, I think we may have a slight issue. After I took the tailstock away and did those passes across there, it's developed a very, very slight wobble. So I think this split that's going through is starting to have not necessarily a structural effect, but it's certainly having some sort of effect, especially when it's spinning. So I think the safest approach now, rather than coming back onto here with any bowl gouges or anything like that, is just to kick down the speed a little bit and finish off the rest of this with low stress carbide tools just to feather in this corner, remove a couple of tool marks, and then we'll put the tools down and back away quietly. Okay, we did it. We got it to the end without it going into thousands of pieces. I'm sure a lot of people will be writing in the comments right now saying, why don't you fill it, or something like that. Well, you know, overall it's structurally very, very sound. It's got a nice bit of wood either side of it holding it together, and it's not going to move. It's just the stresses at spinning 1100 times per minute can make things flex, and if it suddenly flexes a little bit too much in one way or another, it'll escalate and just disintegrate. So we've got it where we need it to be. We're going to quickly start sanding now. I'll let you watch some of it, but then I shall bring you back at the end. Okay, there we go. All sanded beautifully. It really feels so nice. Right, we're going to go on with a bit of isopropyl alcohol just to take off any remaining dust before we go back on with the sealer. That really is something special. Right, we'll let this dry. Okay, that's all nice and dry, so back on again with the 5% shellac. Now there is a chance of this running through the crack down the back side of it, so I will be checking for drips as soon as I've finished. But I do want shellac getting in that crack. Okay, right, we'll come back in a second when this is dried, and we'll just cut it back again with the Scotch pad. Okay, wonderful. Right, back on with the Howard feed and wax, a good healthy amount as before. One thing you'll find if you ever try this is that afterwards your hands smell amazing. The orange oil in it just lingers and it's beautiful. I'll do another coat on the back while I'm here. Right, I'm going to let this dry for 20 minutes. After that I'll assess whether or not I'll put another coat on. And after that I will turn it over, take off the tenon, and then I'll bring you back and we'll take a final look at what we've done. Well, there we go. One beautifully rustic brown oak burl bowl. I lost count how many times I had to sharpen, but it was certainly a few. I think it was worthwhile. Turning old burls like this can be very, very tricky, but you do have to try and be as sympathetic as you can to make sure that you can reveal the beauty that's hiding underneath all the dust and debris and goodness knows what you have to cut through to find it. I'm glad we kept these areas of interest on the outside of the piece. It feels absolutely gorgeous to the touch, and it just adds that little bit of extra to the piece, which I love. And when it comes to the actual figure itself, then it's everything that you would normally hope for from a burl. I'll put some high-res images at the end, just so you can see exactly what I mean. So anyway, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, I would certainly appreciate a like and subscribe and all the usual things. And if you do leave a comment as well, then you are going to be entered into the giveaway the next time we do one. I must also say a huge thanks to Joyce and Kelly for supporting me through buying me a coffee. I really do appreciate it, and the money raised will be, of course, put back into the channel. If you are interested in supporting the channel, then there is a link to the Buy Me a Coffee site in the description and at the end of the video. But apart from that, thank you very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you.